In this video, we will take a look at a transpose tool known as the Arrange tool. Now, the best way to think of the Arrange tool is to think of it as a manual way of being able to transpose and rearrange your data. Observing the Arrange tool in action is certainly the easiest way to understand its operation, so let's dive straight into some working examples. So in this example, I will connect to a dataset we've seen previously called tutorial data. Now let's suppose that we wanted to have 3 records for each user ID. At the moment we only have 1 record for each user. Now one of the records we want to show the first and last name of the individual in 2 separate columns. In the second record we want to show date information, so the date of birth and the date they registered. And the final record, we want to show contact information, which in this dataset would be the email address only. Now our dataset is obviously not arranged in this way. We have 1 record for each user ID. So let's drag in an Arrange tool onto the canvas and tweak the configuration to bring back the desired result. Firstly, you will notice that we have a section at the top called Key Fields. This operates in the same way as the Key Columns section in the Transpose tool. So the fields you select here will be maintained and will not change. So in this example, we will keep the user ID as a key field as we want a common identifier for each row so we know which user the record pertains to. Now the second section, the output fields, are where we stipulate what fields we want to create and which valid values we want to appear in the respective columns. So for this example, we will first of all start by adding a new column. So we click on Column, then Add. We can then provide the column with a header. So let's go ahead and call this column FN for first name, -DOB for date of birth, -email, which on the face of it looks quite long and confusing, but it will make sense shortly. We can then choose whether we want a description column for each row or whether we leave out the description column. In this example, I will include one as it will come in useful to classify our rows. In this column, we want to add first name, birth date, and email. Now let's think about this for a second. We are transposing our data based on user ID. So user ID will be our first column. We are then creating 3 rows of data for each user ID. The first row will contain first name, the second row will contain birth date, and the third row will contain email. So let's click OK and observe the configuration window. Now we are able to swap what valid values appear and the order they appear in, but this order works for us. If we run the workflow and check the result, you can see that we're getting 3 records for each user ID. Our new column is populated with first name, date of birth, and then email. It would be quite helpful if the description column was populated with a classification as to what the row of data represents. So let's quickly do that. The first row is name information. The second row will be date information. And the third row is contact. Okay, great. We now have a field we can use to filter on for specific categories of data. Let's take it one step further and add another column. We will first label this column LN-Reg for last name and registration. We want to bring back the last name column and the registration date column. We will actually leave the third row empty as we do not have any more contact information. So at this point, we have 2 new columns created with specific fields from the original dataset. We have ordered them in such a way that the first row shows name information, the second row shows date information, and the third shows contact information. When we run this final workflow, you can see we've created an entirely new dataset, albeit predicated off the incoming dataset, just slightly rearranged for the purposes of onward consumption for our use case. Now this arrangement is not providing a very good output, but the concept remains. We have been able to construct a new output by transposing and manually creating columns in the way we desired. So to summarize, the Arrange tool allows us to stipulate key columns which are not changed in the final result, very similar to the Transpose tool. The values within them will be duplicated if multiple columns are combined into one. The order you select the fields in the configuration window will be the order they are transposed in each row. You have a description field that you can utilize, but this is optional. You don't have to have a description field. In the example I walked through, I used this description field as a way of being able to provide different bits of information with a category, which can then be filtered subsequently to obtain necessary bits of data. Practice the Arrange tool on different sets of data to make sure you understand how it operates and give yourself even more flexibility with data transformation that will enable you to tackle any data problem that is thrown at you.